Yes, yes. So we're back on the land right now. I never thought I would be so thankful for the winter time. I'm a summer baby, you know what I mean? So I love summertime, but doing all this in 100-degree weather like we've been having, it's been like it's been like 90 in the 90s for like a month straight. That don't stop the process. We got to do what we got to do. You know what I mean? You can see behind me, I've been getting busy knocking out the fence line, right? I was talking to my cousin the other day, and he was, we are just shooting the whatever, kicking it, talking about future plans and this and that. And he's telling me, man, I can't believe you're about to be a farmer. And I'm like, yeah, dude. He's like, how did you even come up with this idea? Like, where did you get this idea of being a farmer, and how did you buy land? And a lot of people have been asking me recently, like, yo, how did you even buy this land? Like, how did you figure it out? I don't know how to do it. Partially, some people are going to be asking you because they're genuinely curious. Some people are going to be asking you because they maybe could see themselves doing it. You might get some haters that are asking you, doubters and haters, but you need some of them anyway, so that don't matter. So I might as well tell people, man, because people have been asking me. So there's a few different ways to acquire some property, right? And I'm going to speak on specifically raw land right here. But, if you want to buy something with a house on it already that's habitable, that has a dwelling on it, that's going to be pretty conventional, okay? You're going to go through the conventional terms of doing things. If you're going to get land itself, right? That meaning 2, 3 acres, 4 or 5 acres, 20 acres, whatever it may be. If you don't have the cash money to go and just put it down on it, then you're probably going to have to get some type of funding, right? Get some type of loan, right? Your big banks, they're not really too prone to lending to just land, and this kind of goes back to before when interest rates were super low. People would buy land, and they know the land would appreciate at made up numbers here, but let's say 12% a year, 8% a year, 6% a year, right? But guess what? I just borrowed $1 million from the bank at 2%. So now I get to make that spread in land. So they kind of caught on to that. So the big institutions, the big banks, your Bank of America, your Chases, da 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 da, they're not going to do it. But that's all good, because guess what? There are banks that specifically do lend on land. Find a reputable bank, nationwide preferably. You know what I mean? You want somebody to hold your note that's not going to go under. Find somebody who does land specific, because they're going to know the specifics. And that brings me back to this. When I found my piece of land, I actually found the land on Craigslist. Yep, Craigslist, of all places too. And Craigslist, everybody thought Craigslist was dead. So I found it on Craigslist, right? Worked with my realtor. My realtor actually put me in touch with somebody who does land specific. She was a loan officer for land specific deals, and then her other avenue was massive construction projects. So they would lend on those two things. That's their wheelhouse. That's what they know. And that's a good thing, because you want somebody who knows about that specific field that you're in, right? Because to some people, it might just look like a piece of dirt. You know what I mean? And they're trying to really have the bank's best interests at heart, right? So I found that. Boom. I found my bank. They actually do lend on land. Now, here's the thing. Most banks that do lend on land, they're going to be it's not your regular 5% down, 20% down like it is if you go conventional. If you go conventional, you have good credit, you go conventional, and there's a home on the piece of property, you can go conventional. And then you can come to the table with 20%. You can come to the table with whatever first-time home buyer, if that happens to be you, first-time home buyer love, that can be like 5% down. Sometimes it can be 10% down, but there's a kickback. Sometimes there's, you have to figure out what's in your area. Get with a dope mortgage broker who can, he might be worth his weight. If he can put you into a few programs or get you like, yeah, do this, do this, do this, do this. This goes the same for tax people, you know what I mean? If they charge you this, but they save you this, it was worth it, right? I digress from that. But, so when it comes to land now, step one, I was just looking everywhere. I looked on Craigslist, I looked on the MLS, I looked on Zillow, I looked on Facebook Marketplace, I looked on just ads, word of mouth, ayo, boom, 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 I like this area. Does your neighbor want to sell? No? Okay, cool. Is this guy open to this? No? Okay, cool. Can this be split up? Nah, there's an easement running through it. Okay, cool. Anyways, long story short, I go over here, find something on Craigslist, crazy. And the guy who was selling the property, it was an old couple, and then their real estate broker happened to be a great dude. Now we're friends. But he linked me up with the bank that does specific land loans. Okay, you're gonna want to get that because they were one of the better ones, and they still wanted me to have, what was it, 35% down. So 35% of the assessed value you have to have in liquid, actual cash money, to be able to give them, and then they'll front you the other 65%. That's how it works. That's how it worked with my situation. There may be other little, you know what I mean? There may be other companies that do it for less or do it for whatever. In my experience, that's kind of regular because you are going to have to come up with a bigger chunk up front, excuse me. You're going to have to come up with a bigger chunk of money just because they know that land doesn't sell like houses do, because you can't just live on land like you could just live on a house. You know what I mean? So if they're going to hold on to that asset and say they have to fire sale it one day because you mess up and you don't pay, they want to make sure that they got great margins. They got really, really, really good margins so that they can, protect themselves. Worst comes to worst, God forbid, right? So that's step one. Okay, come up with the down payment. And we already know how we got to do this. Like, at the end of the day, you got to grind. You have to grind. You have to grind. That's just a fact. You're going to have to grind for a year or two. 2 years is ideal because 2 years, let's say you work at a warehouse or you manage a clothing store or you work in the mall or whatever. You work some regular job, right? With 2 years worth of income, 2 years worth of savings, and this is living below your means. You have to live like, I'm talking, you think you can do this, you better do this. You better be down here. You know what I'm saying? Eat top ramen for a year, something like that, because it's going to get you where you need to go. So let's say 2 years, right? We're going to do 2 years at work, whatever job it may be, and it doesn't even have to be the craziest job in the world, all right? You're going to have to live below your means 2 years. Stack everything you can to the side, and then go to the bank. Once you've already identified your bank who does land loans. So once you've identified your bank, right? Now all it comes to is going to them. You're going to show them your work history, right? You're going to show them your work history. They're going to say, okay, cool. You're going to show them that you have the 35%. Okay, cool. Say if that's 20 grand in the bank, you got your 20 grand, you got your 2 years of steady, consistent work employment. And the thing is, the work employment, for people who don't know this, Work employment means at the same job. You can't have one job 6 months, next job 6 months, next job 6 months, next job 6 months. Because what that's signaling to the bank is that you're not solid. You don't stick with one thing. You're not a guaranteed payer. You know what I mean? They want their money. They don't care. They want their money. Okay? You need to look stable to these people. Okay, this person's stable. His bank account goes like this. You know? This is how his bank account goes. Money comes in, bills go out, and it's just floating. They don't want to see this. They don't want to see this. All this is too much. It's too much. They don't want to see you get money, go to zero, pay an NF, not for no sufficient funds fee, come back to life, bounce back, tax season, drop down to nothing. No. Like, you got to be cool. You have to put yourself in their shoes, right? Because it's not even these little bank people. They make 20 bucks an hour, whatever. It's not them. Their underwriters are going to go and they're going to say, is this person a valid candidate? Can we trust this person? Right? Because their jobs are on the line, right? The bank can afford, if you default on your loan, it is what it is. The bank can afford to handle that. But you get a loan officer or you get an underwriter who's writing up a ton of those, that's a problem. And now guess what? That person's in jeopardy. So everybody, it's protect your own culo. You know what I'm saying? Protect your own butt out here. That's what people are trying to do, pause. But so once you've, and this is the thing, 2 years. It could be a 2-year plan. My plan took about 2.5 years. Okay? That was saving everything, working 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, and pulling up to the bank with the right receipts. Like, hey, look, check this out. You can see I'm great on paper. Boom. I got the 2 years. Boom. You need 35%? I got that. Boom. Oh, and then as well, this is something that I would really suggest. I'm glad that I just remembered this. When you're about to start this journey, it doesn't matter, say if you're 18, say if you're 20, 26, you could be 42. You know, if you're 42, it might be a little bit harder because you might already be terrible by then, but hopefully not. When you lock down this job that's going to get you where you need to go, you're going to need to get a few credit cards. I'm not big on credit. I don't live off credit. I don't particularly like the shackles, but I understand what it is and I use credit cards to my advantage. My only thing is I pay them off every month. So I never pay interest because it hurts my soul, right? I don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is when you get your job and you have your income, work a month or two, average that out, figure out, okay, this is this, because guess what? You're still going to have to eat. You're still going to have to do this. You're still going to have to do that, right? But all that cash you would spend on gas and food, pretty much that's the basics. Gas and food, that's it. You shouldn't be shopping. You shouldn't be doing nothing, all right? This is 2 years to change your life. You should be doing nothing else but that, all right? So gas, food. Let's get a couple credit cards. You're going to need a few different sources of credit. So I would say 2 credit cards, okay? And I'm just telling you from experience. So get 2 credit cards. Your first one, if you have no credit, let's say you're 18 years old or you're 20 years old, your first one is probably going to be a Capital One prepaid credit card. You send them in $300 or $500, and they essentially hold that for you. You spend off the credit card, right? They're holding that little ransom as an insurance policy. Now, you spend on that credit card, and then you pay it back with different money. With your work money, you go ahead and pay that back. Pay that back, pay that back, pay that back, pay that back. After, I think it's 6 months or it's maybe a year, they're going to send you a check in the mail. Boom, here you go. Here's your deposit back. We trust you now. Now you're worth something. You are now a worthy person. You're going to be like, okay, cool. All right, I could do that. So, boom. With that now, you're going to apply for your second credit card. Second credit card, I mean, you're not going to get any of the real good ones. I probably would say stay away from American Express, although I love American Express, but you're not going to have the credit for it. Those are for the future. Those are for the future. Right now, we're talking about Capital One prepaid, boom. Get that, pay that, get that, pay that, get that, pay that, get that, pay that, boom. Once they offer you your money back, okay, now we're cooking. Go to your bank. If you've been with Bank of America since you was 17 years old or something like that, then guess what? Go to Bank of America, tell them you want a credit card. Tell them you want $1,000 limit, whatever, whatever you can get, really. It doesn't matter. We don't care about the limit because guess what? We're not going to spend what we don't have. So it doesn't matter. They can give me $1 million limit. If I know I can only clearly spend and pay $3,000 a month, then guess what? It's $3,000 a month it is. I don't care if I have a black card, right? Boom, go to your bank, get a credit card. So now you've got two. Now you'll have two, kind of in 6 months, hopefully, you'll have two rotating credit cards, okay? Lovely. Another one I just thought of. And this one I can actually vouch for because I actually used it. And I can say, I do believe that there are scammer companies out there that do things like this, but I do know that there are real ones as well. And I used the real one. Sometimes I just hate recommending exact specific companies because I'm not behind the scenes at any of these companies. I'm not working there. I don't know if the dope CEO just got fired or died in a plane crash and now his wife took it over and she doesn't know how to run the business, and all of a sudden you're going to get screwed and you're going to come back to me and be like, yo, it's Nicolas Cage, man. Why'd you do me like that? Huh? And I'm going to be gone in 60 seconds because I'm going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. That wasn't me. So I'm going to keep it slightly vague in terms of exact companies. But I did do this. There's a few reputable ones out there. I was looking at 3, I remember. I was renting at the time, and I had a company. Essentially, you pay them $10 a month. It's like $9.99, somewhere like $12.99, things like that. They actually, you call your building manager, right? Which I was cool with her. So I said, hey, yo, these people are going to call you. They're going to ask you if I've been paying my rent on time and for how long. It's pretty simple. They just shoot an email or they just do a phone call. It's like a one-time thing. And then they just send an email every month, and it's easy, right? So what they do is they collect that information, and I believe they can do this for your house rental, your car lease, or your car payment, cell phone payment. I also do believe. I didn't use it for any of those. I only used it for the rent one. But I'm pretty sure that it can be done for those 3. Kind of those are the top 3, And so it's like a reporting service, essentially, right? They're checking your homework and saying, yep, you got it done. And then the big companies over here, your Experians and all of them, they trust their word. They say, okay, you guys double check the work. And they're going to say, yeah, we double check the work for a fee. Their fee is whatever, $10. They made the call. Yes, he's paying. Okay, cool. They take it as valid information from that agency, right? And my credit score did boost. I want to say it boosted by, what did it boost by? 20 points? It was something. It wasn't not nothing. You know what I mean? It was something. So it was worth it for me. They're actually allowed to go back 24 months. So if they go back 2 years and your credit score jumps, now, okay, so now where are we at? We got 1 credit card. We got 2 credit card. We've located our lender that we're going to target once we have 2 years worth of employment at the same job, right? And you're going to just gird up your loins and tough it out and go work. Go slave for the 2 years, because guess what? This is the only time in life. If you do it right, this is the only time in life you're going to have to do that. I promise. Because nobody's meant to be a slave. The way it's set up just is what it is right now. But you're going to have to do this once, So now, let's say we pass our 2-year mark, right? We pass our 2-year mark, And now we're ready. We have our 20% in hand or 35. You're going to figure this out, whichever percentage it is, right? You're going to know prior so that you can have a regiment. If you need to save $1,000 a month, cool, it's $1,000 a month. But if $1,000 a month doesn't get you to your 35%, then it might be $2,500 a month. All right? These are things you have to do early. Get them done early, or at the end of the term, you could just work a few extra months and make up the difference, because life's gonna happen in between as well. I'm not oblivious to that. But what I'm saying is, yeah, beautiful oak tree. Beautiful oak tree. It really is beautiful out here. It really is. All the BS aside, and all the ridiculousness, it's really one of them places. It's really like the Mediterranean in North America. We are 35% stacked, 2 credit cards, plus we've got our rent reporting from the rental. We've got our cell phone reporting. We've got our car lease reporting, right? Because that's all good money. All of that stuff, and you got to obviously when I say this, I feel like I really shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to say it. You have to pay these things. You can't be like, hey, it didn't work, but I was late this time, and this time my mom got sick, and this time it was this, and this time. No. You have to pay them all on time. Point blank, period. Otherwise, people are going to look at you like you're a joke. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. People are going to look at you like you're crazy, bro. You're coming over here asking me for money, and you didn't even pay that guy back yet. Why would I put anything in your pocket? That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. That's not reality. That's not reality, bro. That's not how anybody should operate. I don't even judge people for things like that. You know what I'm saying? If I have too much pride, I wouldn't even ask. If I knew I was on BS, I would not even ask. There's no way. I'd be like, nah, sorry, bro. I'm already. Even if people offered me money, I'd be like, nope, I'm good. You know why? Because I'm right now. Look at these. Look at these, man. Look at these beautiful acorns. I'm about to collect all of these and propagate them, because I know they love the climate here. I'm in kind of a microclimate, definitely microclimate per se, because I've got all these other climates around me, and I'm in a little pocket in Southern California with water. Super rare. That's going to be something else we're going to talk about on what to identify for. But now, first of all, we need to get this land. We need to get this land. Primarily, primera, however you say it, okay? You got to get this land first so you can escape. And now this is the conventional way I'm talking about. Well, not conventional. Conventional is going to like the big banks. This is tier 2, still getting from a bank, money, borrowing from a bank. But there's also you can get a loan from a family member. If your people got money like that, get it from a family member and just pay them back and say, look, instead of me giving 4% to the bank, I love you, you're my uncle, I'll give you the 4%. You take care of my cousins and everybody's happy and I'm chilling, and I still got what I want, you got what you want. So you can do it that way, okay? There's also another way. If you find a property, right? Wow. Man, I love this tree so much. This is my favorite tree. This is literally my favorite one. That tree right there, that's something gorgeous right there. That's just something gorgeous. But, so, anyway, you're either going to get it from a big bank, you're either going to get it from a little bank, you're either going to borrow the money from a family member, and if you borrow the money from a family member or a friend, pay them interest. Pay them interest, you owe them that. Even if they say, no, it's cool, put a little juice on it for them. You know what I mean? Because they don't have to do you that favor, and anybody else in this world is going to charge you juice anyways. You're going to pay. So if you're going to pay regardless, then pay it to your people. That's not so terrible, Okay, there's a last way that's also a really, really fantastic way. It requires a few things in place for you to do it, but it can be done. And this is the way that a lot of things were done in the past, before things got super, super crazy. So say You buy this land from somebody. They had it in their family for a real long time. They own it outright, free and clear. There's no note on it, right? All they do is pay the property taxes every year and that's it. They own it, right? Okay. They can, if you find, and these deals are out there. This is not some like random, you'll never find type thing. You can find these for real, for real. Your selection is going to be smaller as far as where and, you know, the exact piece of land. If you're set on an exact piece of land, you might have to do whatever you have to do to get that money to get it. You know, that's just a fact. But if you're open to whatever, maybe living 30 minutes away or this or that or whatever, however it shakes out. If you're open to doing certain things, you can do a seller finance or a seller carry. Okay, that means that the actual landowner is going to act as the bank for you. They're going to say, okay, Mr. Buyer, I own this piece of property. I don't owe anything on it. We actually don't even have to involve the banks in this at all because I know your uncle and he says you're good for it and blah, blah, blah. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they might want to see your credit score just to make sure you're not a complete dirtbag. I'd understand that, you know. They might want to do that. But they're not going to make you go through all the rigmarole, and they're not going to care if you've been at your job 18 months instead of 24 months. You know what I mean? They're going to, you're going to be able to work with you more. A lot of times they'll request a bigger down payment just because they're not a massive financial institution and they got more to lose, I guess you could say. But if you're trying to sell it to them, you can also tell them too, say, hey, look, this land is $100,000. I'm going to give you 50. So you're halfway paid from the price that you want anyways, right now, boom. And in pretty much all of the typical boilerplate agreements, if you don't pay them after, you know, it's built into the contract, and definitely you're going to want to make sure you look at this part of the contract to say, hey, if I don't pay 1 month, what happens? 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. But there does come a point where there's no more late penalties to be paid because you've been delinquent for, let's call it a year. It might be 6 months in a boilerplate standard agreement. If you don't pay, then guess what? We snatch that land back from you. We keep your down payment. We keep your deposit. All the payments that you've paid up until this point, say you've paid a year or two worth of payments, $1,000 a month or whatever, we keep all of that, and we reserve the right to take that land back, right? And that can be a selling feature. You're kind of hanging yourself out there. But if you don't have credit and you're trying to convince somebody that, hey, this is a good deal for you too, because guess what? If I don't pay, you get to win. You know, it makes people feel a little bit more comfortable, and just make sure that it's in the contract in a certain way so that they know it and you know it, right? And then you gotta hold to it. And if you don't pay, you can't cry, you know? You signed it, you can't pay and be like, oh, dude, I paid 2 years of payments, but then, you know, then this happened and then, no, bro, they're not gonna want to hear that. They're not going to want to hear cries and tears and nothing. They want their money. And if you can't give them their money, they have the right to snatch back their land. So, you know, but that's another route. I'm just kind of giving you guys options, and I'm just giving you guys routes about going about this and how to do it and how to get it, right? I don't have experience with rent to own. I've heard good and I've heard bad. I've heard some horror stories about rent to owns, and then I've heard okay ones, you know? There's also, I guess you could do, if somebody had a ton of acreage. I know a lot of people will do down here, let's say I've got groves, you've got vineyards, you've got orchards, things like that. The people will let you live there and you just work for them. You just work, they'll pay you less, you get to live for free. You're still on the farm, you get to live a farm lifestyle, you get to pick up some tricks, you get to kind of learn while being paid. That's a cool starter stone, you know what I mean? For you to work and jump off of, you know what I'm saying? And then eventually get your own piece, and then you have a little bit of confidence. You know, I've helped out people do this and people do that, and I've worked on a few little farms. So, and I've also renovated houses and stuff like that. So I'm not out of my depth here. It's definitely something new, and I'm definitely no professional by any stretch of the imagination, but I do know the basics, and I'm not scared. It's really mostly about the feeling, you know what I'm saying? Because even if your skills aren't there, but if you have a little bit of confidence, and you have a little bit of knowledge to back the confidence, you can't just have foolhardy confidence where you just think you can do it and you can't. You know what I mean? You do need to know how to swing a hammer and, you know, do what you got to do. So I feel like I'm there. I'm kind of in the middle, and everything else I'll figure out along the way. And I'm not scared to ask. I got my cousin, I got neighbors, I got friends, I got this, I got that. If I need something or if I have a question, I can always go to YouTube, because I love YouTube. You know, I love YouTube. I really do. It's crazy. I feel like I've learned so much, and I hope it is continued to be what it is and doesn't get like just censored down so much, because it really is a beautiful thing. Anybody else can think of anything else as far as purchasing the land? Where did we go through? We went through who's going to lend you the money. We went through how to get the money. We went through the duration of time you need for employment. That's 2 years, remember. We went through your options about getting lent money, or having cash, or doing a seller finance, or a seller carry. We did all of that. Oh, maybe the last thing I would say is, before you pull the trigger on any piece of land, check your county. See what county that land falls under, and make sure that county's values align with your values. That's how I'm going to put it. There's better counties out here for farming. There's worse counties out here for farming. There's counties where they're going to leave you alone. There's counties where they might not leave you alone. You know what I mean? Plus also too, if you get out into the county, I think your property tax should be a bit lower. I think they usually drop just a touch. So that's something to look at, because once you're there, you're locked in, right? And you got to play by their rules, essentially. And we're all trying to escape it. So get somewhere that's cool. Get somewhere where you're going to fit in. Before you pull the trigger, mandatory meet the neighbors. You need to mandatory meet those neighbors. You know, this is saying you went through step 1 to 68, and now here we go. Meet the neighbors. Do what you got to do. If they're cool, that's a big thing off the list. And then you can move forward. Like really move forward. Close the deal, sign the deal, yada, yada, yada. But I got to get back to work. I've been over here just blah, 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 chatting, man. Just chatting too much. But yeah, that's it, man. Peace.